I woke up from emergency surgery to find out my mother had already posted photos of me unconscious, hooked to an IV, captioned with a candle emoji and a discount code, before anyone had even told me if I was okay. I'm Julia Hart. I'm 31. I'm an ER nurse, which means I thought I'd already seen every way a person could hurt someone they claimed to love. My mother taught me otherwise to explain what happened in that hospital room. I have to take you back to a yellow house with a porch swing nobody was allowed to sit on until it had been photographed. I was 8 when my mother Renee started a blog called the Sunny Porch Journal. It began innocently: casseroles, craft tables, me in a pumpkin patch. Then the followers started climbing, and our house quietly turned into a set. Breakfast got cold while she chased better light. I had a real outfit and a filming outfit, and I learned the difference before I learned cursive. Other kids had chores. I had reshoed. My mother directed our family the way some women garden, constantly, lovingly, with shears. Smile bigger. Say it again, but happier. One more, sweetie. Just one more. There was real money in it eventually. Braces. Summer camp. The porch swing itself. My mother wasn't absent or checked out. She was right there every day, pointing a lens at us and calling it love. I believed her the way you believe the weather, until I turned 13 and she published a post that followed me down every hallway of middle school for a year. A photo of me crying on the bathroom floor, taken through a door I hadn't thought to close, captioned with details about my first period and tagged with a heating pad brand. It performed, as she liked to say, beautifully. My classmates did not let me forget it for months. I fought back where I could. At 16, I refused to film a back-to-school haul. Sat on the stairs with my arms crossed while sponsored backpacks waited in plastic. My mother didn't yell. She got quiet and heard instead, which was worse. That camera paid for your braces, she told me. You'd take food off our table over a little embarrassment. Guilt fits a teenager perfectly, like a leash size, just right. The year I turned 14, my mother brought home a new baby and a new content calendar in the same week. My little sister, Piper, a fresh face for the brand. I held her in the hospital lobby, away from the lens, and made her a promise I had no actual power to keep, that she would never be the star. It's the only promise leaving home ever made me break. At 24, I moved to Chicago for good, into an apartment the size of my mother's pantry, and I loved it like oxygen. I put myself through nursing school on night shifts and loans, and I set exactly one boundary in words a preschool teacher could not misunderstand. No photos of me, ever again. My mother agreed with the wounded grace of someone granting a strange favor. Mostly, she kept it. If you didn't count the old footage, she recycled every anniversary. Because that content already existed. I met Ryan around then, a field engineer with calm hands who had no idea who the Sunny Porch Journal was, which might be the most attractive thing about him. He learned quickly that I kept him 3 steps back from my family, and took me years to realize 3 steps back from me too. I had gotten so good at not being seen that I did it even with the lights off and the door locked. So when I found out at 29 that I was pregnant, I told exactly one person. 11 weeks of something that was entirely, gloriously mine, no caption, no audience, just a due date and a man who kept resting his hand on my stomach during commercials. Then, on a Tuesday night shift, something inside me tore. I knew the pain was wrong before I could name it, the way you know a smoke alarm from an oven timer. 6 hours into my shift, it folded me over a supply cart. A ruptured ectopic pregnancy, the baby had implanted in the wrong place, and there's no version of that story where the baby survives. And if you wait too long, no version where the mother does either. They ran me into surgery under lights I'd stood beside 100 times. Ryan was 30,000 feet over Texas. Phone off. Completely unreachable in the 1 hour of his life, I needed him. So the hospital did what hospitals do. They worked down the emergency contact list. The second name on it was my mother. She arrived within the hour, let in as next of kin while I was still under. I woke at 4 in the morning to a kind nurse telling me I'd lost the pregnancy and 1 fallopian tube, and that I was going to be fine, a word we use in medicine, like a bandage. My phone sat on the tray beside me. When I turned it over, the screen was a wall of 200 notifications, all tagging me in my mother's newest post. The photo was taken from the foot of my recovery bed. I was unconscious, gray Ann IV in my arm, my gown slipping off one shoulder. My mother had gotten the lighting right, she always did. The caption began, "Our family is walking through an unthinkable loss tonight." She named the pregnancy I had told no one about. She wrote, "Hug your babies tonight," added a dove emoji, and linked a discount code for a candle company. The post was already the best performing thing on her page in over a year. Ryan found out his child was gone from a phone notification in a rental car. Before I could reach him myself, my mother came into my recovery room carrying gas station flowers, glowing like a woman coming home from a good church service. "Honey, the response has been incredible," she said. "People need to see this. You're helping so many women." I asked her, very quietly, to take it down. She patted my leg through the blanket and told me I'd understand once the numbness wore off. Then she said the sentence that told me everything I needed to know about who she had always been. "It's already reached 90,000 people. If I delete it now, it looks like we're hiding something. There's a narrative to consider. I was 14 hours out of emergency surgery, minus one fallopian tube and one future." My mother was workshopping optics at the foot of my bed. When I said the word private, she flinched like I'd sworn at her, then went straight to wounded. "So I'm not allowed to grieve my own grandchild. You're punishing me for loving too loud." My father hovered in the doorway holding her camera bag, studying the floor tile, saying nothing at all. Then I saw movement behind him. My sister Piper, 15 years old, filming through the hallway window, mouthing "Mom said to get footage of you two making up." She looked like she wanted to dissolve. It wasn't her fault. She was a kid following the only house rule she'd ever known. Something in my chest went very still and very cold, like a monitor flatlining into one clean tone. My mother hadn't broken the rules of our family. I finally understood she was the rules. There was no version of me awake or under anesthesia, whole or bleeding, that she wouldn't sell. I was discharged that Thursday. I went home and did not make a scene, because scenes were her currency and I was done paying in it. I blocked her number, her accounts, her email. I sent one text before the wall went up. "Until you understand what you took from me, don't call." Then I turned off my phone and slept. 11 hours next to a man who kept one hand on my shoulder all night. My mother responded the only way she knew how. Within a week, there was a 9-minute video, filmed in good light, titled, "My daughter left me while I was grieving." Strangers found my nursing profile and flooded it with 1-star reviews calling me a heartless nurse. Someone mailed a sympathy card addressed to the daughter who abandoned her grieving mom. My aunt called and led with, "She's your mother. Family comes first," and couldn't tell me a single fact about my actual surgery. My father never called at all, which was its own kind of information. I'd lost my mother, my father, my sister, and the right to tell my own story, all in 1 month. For 2 years, that was the whole story. I found a therapist, worked, got very good at trauma cases. Ryan proposed on an ordinary Sunday. I said not yet, and couldn't explain why, even to him. He knew the events of that hospital night. He didn't know the weather of it, the name I'd picked and never said aloud. I'd hidden it even from him. Filed under safe. I'm not proud of this part. I made an anonymous account and checked my mother's channel. The way you'd check the weather in a country you fled. My sister Piper was 17 now, and she was the brand. Her driving test, her dress shopping, all scheduled and captioned in my mother's voice. Then one video kept me up until 3 in the morning, and it wasn't because Piper was smiling in it. It was called Piper's First Heartbreak, How Our Family Copes. A boy had ended things with her over text, and within a day, my mother had filmed her swollen-eyed at the kitchen island. A mug of cocoa placed in frame like a prop. Because it was a prop, it outperformed everything on the channel that month. Sponsored by a tea brand. I watched it twice and was sick the second time. I got a message to Piper through a friend's older sister, a number with no name attached. She called from her closet, whispering, and what I heard in 20 minutes rearranged me. She loved the comments and hated the camera, and couldn't always tell the difference between being loved and being watched, because no one had ever shown her one without the other. I told her she could stay with me anytime. No phones. She laughed like I'd offered her a weekend on the moon. That same week, on a night shift, I read about a new state law covering kids and monetized content. Money owed into trust. Records parents had to keep. I saved it quietly, the way you pocket a key to a door you hope you'll never need.
Then the internet did to my mother exactly what she'd taught it to do to us. A former blog kid a few years behind me wrote an essay about growing up as content, and it went everywhere. News segments, hashtags, lists. My mother's channel made the lists. Somebody dug up the hospital post, screenshotted the candle code next to my unconscious face. And it traveled further in a weekend than her apology tour ever would. Her biggest sponsor paused the partnership by Monday. She posted a 4-minute apology reading from her phone. And the internet, which can smell a performance faster than any daughter, laughed at her. The channel went into freefall. I didn't enjoy it. Every viral post dunking on my mother had my unconscious face in it, or Piper's swollen eyes. The internet wasn't defending us. It was just changing channels. Their outrage was content too. And my family was still the raw material. 3 weeks after her last sponsor walked away, my doorbell rang on a gray Tuesday. Through the peephole stood a woman I barely recognized, wearing my mother's face, no makeup. Gray showing at her part, a cardigan from before the blog, peeled at the elbows. No phone in her hand. I noticed that the way you notice a soldier without his rifle. I opened the door the width of my forearm. "I've been in therapy since July," she said. "I'm not here to defend myself. I did terrible things to you and called them love. I understand if you close this door," and the real reason she'd come. "Thanksgiving is in 6 weeks. Come home, not for me, for Piper, for your dad." "I've changed, Julia. I'm asking for the chance to prove it." I said I'd think about it and closed the door gently, then leaned against it, shaking. Through the curtain gap, I watched her sit in her parked car for 10 full minutes. She never once picked up her phone. 2 years earlier, she'd have filmed the doorstep. I had no idea what to do with that. I brought it to my therapist that week like a splinter I couldn't reach. "What would proof even look like to you?" she asked. I opened my mouth to say nothing would, and found that wasn't quite true anymore. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a page torn from my nursing notebook, the kind I use for handoff notes, and wrote 5 lines in block letters. The first 4 I was prepared to say out loud in a diner. The 5th one I folded over, because I wasn't writing it for her. I was writing it for me. We met at a diner on neutral ground. She reached across the table when she sat down. I kept my hands around my mug. Then I slid the page across the laminate and watched her read the terms in my blocky handwriting. Never post either of us again. Anywhere, ever. Take down everything. Every video, every photo, including the hospital post, including my first period, including 2 decades of what she called her life's work. See a licensed therapist weekly, and it never becomes content. Apologize to Piper in private, face-to-face, no script, no audience, and never mention to a single follower that she did it. She read them twice. Touched the folded 5th line with one finger, and looked up. "That's not yours yet," I said. "If the first 4 ever get done, you'll hear it." She asked how long it would take. "If it's real," I told her, "it can happen with the cameras off." "That's the whole test, Mom. That's the only test." Step 1 happened faster than I expected. The feed froze that same night. No goodbye post, no announcement. Itself a small miracle from a woman who'd never once in 2 decades done anything without announcing it. Over 3 weeks, the archive thinned. I'd refresh on my breaks and find another year of our lives gone. I sat in a hospital parking garage one evening, genuinely unable to name what I felt watching her erase her own life's work square by square. Relief, yes. And underneath it, uninvited, a thin grief I resented. We started Sunday coffees. Awkward, formal, 40-minute appointments. She came without her phone, or kept it zipped away. Either way, I never saw it. But one thing stayed up, the hospital post. Everything around it fell, and that one square remained. When I asked her about it directly, she looked at the table. "The platform archive is complicated, honey. I'm working on it." A small red flag went up. In my job, complicated usually means there's something someone doesn't want to tell you. Then, Peepa texted me. "Mom apologized to me last night." No script. She cried ugly. It was real, I think. Before I could feel relieved, another text, "Come get me this weekend. There's something in her office you need to see in the car." Piper mentioned that our mother's old manager, Talia, had been calling lately, and that our mother started taking those calls in a closed garage now, which you don't do unless the house isn't private enough. Before we left, Piper walked me past the office for a phone charger. The old content calendar whiteboard had been wiped. But wiped fast ghost letters survived in the corner. Part of a word, faint column, lines with dates. That Sunday evening, wrapped in a blanket on my couch with cocoa she'd made herself, Piper opened her banking app to show me something. And I stopped telling myself anything at all. 10 years as the face of a family brand had earned my sister, according to the account with her name on it, almost nothing. A few $100s, birthday money, babysitting. The college fund my mother had toasted on camera, invoked in a dozen sponsored posts. Piper had never once seen a statement for it. When she'd asked last spring, she got the wounded voice. We're a family. Not a business. Why would you talk to me like a business? Except the money had moved like a business into the family LLC that owned the cameras and paid the mortgage on the yellow house. I reached for my own phone to draft a furious text. Then I stopped, because I'm a nurse. And the one thing my job has beaten into me is that you don't operate on your own family. And you don't confront a hemorrhage with a stern conversation. You called the people whose job it is. Monday morning, I made 2 calls. The first 2, a nonprofit that advocates for kids raised in monetized content. The second to the lawyer they recommended, Diane Marsh, handshake like a door closing firmly. She explained what the new state law could actually do. Content featuring Piper as a minor. Monetized meant a percentage belonged to her, owed into a trust. Records could be requested. If the family cooperated, it was paperwork and a signature, no courtroom. If they didn't, Piper would have standing to pursue it herself when she turned 18, which was months away. Not years. Signing that representation paperwork meant my mother would get a formal legal notice with my name attached. Not a fight at a dinner table she could cry her way out of. I signed it anyway. The notice reached her on a Thursday. On Friday, she asked to meet, and she didn't come alone, she brought my aunt, not a lawyer, which told me something. You bring a lawyer to fight the paper? You bring your sister to fight the daughter? My aunt opened with lawyers. Julia, against your own mother. Family does not do this to family. I let it wash over me while I watched my mother instead. She was being quiet, and quiet was new. When my aunt paused for breath, my mother put a hand on her arm and said, simply, Deb, stop. Wait. Then, to me, you think I'd fight you on Piper's money? The meeting ended without shouting, which in my family qualifies as a moon landing. That night, my father called for the first time in 2 years. I should have unplugged that camera 15 years ago, he said, and cried. Tell me what you need me to do. Before hanging up, he added one more thing. Talia's been at the house twice this month. Your mother meets her in the driveway, like she doesn't want the walls to hear. And yet, the proof kept coming. My mother's own lawyer advised her in writing to slow down and negotiate the trust terms. She declined and signed the first full draft, initialed every page. Diane called, sounding almost annoyed. In my career, the parents who sign this fast are about 1 in 20. I'm obligated to tell you, this is going well. Sunday dinners started small ones. My mother cooked a roast and never once photographed it, which sounds trivial unless you grew up eating cold food under a ring light. She talked about therapy the way beginners do, mangling the vocabulary. Telling me her therapist, the date in the file properties, was the detail that mattered. The deck had been created 6 weeks before my doorbell ever rang. Before the cardigan with the peeled elbows. Before she sat in her car, not filming, while I watched from behind a curtain and let myself be moved by it. My test, my diner, my handwritten list, all of it mapped onto somebody's season arc. Like they'd written my part before I ever played it, I drove to my mother's house with the deck printed out. I put it on the counter between us, title up, and asked one question. Which episode is this, Mom? She read the cover and aged in front of me, and, to her credit, she didn't perform shock. She told it, straight enough, after the collapse. Her old manager had come to her with the deal like a life raft, framed as a way to make things right with the girls. In public, where they broke us. She swore. palms flat on the counter, that she'd never signed it, that the therapy was real. The apology to Piper was real. That the doorstep had been hers before anyone drafted a bullet point about it. The deck was real, and the tears were real. The redemption was for sale, and the redemption was happening. I finally understood that maybe even she couldn't tell where the woman ended and the show began. I told myself I was done. Then, at 2 a.m, my phone rang. Piper, whispering from the closet again. If our mother didn't take the deal, they'd lose the house. And Piper's own trust money would come up short too, since the deal was structured to cover exactly what she was legally owed. So maybe I should just do it, Piper said. 1 season. I can survive 1 more season. Standing in my dark kitchen, I heard the sound I'd been listening for my entire adult life without knowing it. The wheel coming all the way back around. The machine doesn't need to chase you. It just waits for the moment your family needs the money. And it lets love do the recruiting. Telling Piper no would be easy and useless. She didn't need my no. She needed a reason to say her own. And there was exactly 1 card left in my hand, heavy enough to be that reason. The 5th line on my list. The one I'd folded over at the diner. Written for me and no one else. The dinner where the contract would be decided happened that Saturday. I drove out and saw a warm ring light glow through the front window before I even reached the door. Inside, my mother's old manager laid out the terms over dinner. 6 episodes. The trust funded in full, Piper's college covered, the house payments caught up. Then she turned to me and said the cleverest thing anyone had said in that house in years. Honestly. Julia, the public deserves your side. You've been the villain in this story for 2 years. Episode 1 fixes that. For about 10 seconds, I wanted it. I saw the comments turning, the sympathy card senders apologizing, 2 years of being the family monster, refunded in full. Then I looked at the ring light, pointed at the couch where the reconciliation was scheduled to occur, and the 10 seconds ended. I stood up, walked into the den and unplugged the ring light at the wall. I told the manager plainly that Piper's trust didn't depend on any show. It was already signed and filed, whatever happened tonight. Then I turned to my mother and played the only card I had left. Mom, the 5th line. You've earned the right to hear it. I unfolded the paper and read it out loud. 1 hour. Just us, cameras off, and I'll let you see me. Tonight. No cameras, no witnesses, no story you'll ever be allowed to tell, I said. The one thing in this world you can't monetize? If it's real, it can happen with the cameras off. So can this? In that kitchen, under the hum of the vent hood, I gave my mother the one thing she had never gotten from me. The thing I'd never given anyone whole. Not even Ryan. I told her about the 11 weeks. The name I'd picked and never said aloud. What it does to a person to learn their grief had a discount code before it had a name. When I finished, she sat across from me, wrecked in a way I'd never once seen. No angles, no light, mascara gone. But if no one sees it, she asked, in a voice I somehow recognized as a child's, who's going to know I changed? I will, I said. She got up, walked out to the porch, and handed the manager the folder unsigned. Tell them no, she said. All of it. The manager didn't waste breath persuading. You'll be replaced by Friday, she said, not unkindly. Somebody always says yes. It didn't die on that porch. It just moved to another family's driveway. But it moved without mine. That week, the hospital post finally came down. Then the rest, 2 decades of it, switched to private in one long evening. My mother's hand shaking on the trackpad, Piper beside her clicking through the confirmations. The trust cleared through my lawyer's office. Piper's share untouchable until her birthday, which was soon. The yellow house went up for sale that November. My mother listed it herself. It turns out when you stop performing a life, you can afford a smaller one. The internet wrote its own ending, as it does. Some forum decided the controlling daughter had forced her poor mother offline. And that version of me is still out there, permanent, wearing my name. I never corrected it. Correcting it would have cost the only thing I'd actually won. I would never make my mother into content either. Not even to win. I told Ryan everything. The name, all of it. 2 years late and exactly on time. Then I asked if the ring was still available. It was, my mother is not finished, because changed isn't a place you arrive. It's a verb with no tense but present. At Piper's next birthday, she picked up her phone out of pure reflex when the cake came out, caught herself, and set it face down on the counter like someone crushing a pack of cigarettes. Progress in my family is measured now in things that don't get posted. Thanksgiving came back to us that year. Smaller, 2 years late. Nobody filmed it. Near the end, my mother handed me a shoebox in my family. Shoeboxes carry history. Inside were printed photographs. Me at a fair, eyes shut, laughing. Piper asleep on our father's chest. My mother mid-sneeze at somebody's graduation, gloriously unflattering every crooked, unusable frame from 2 decades of outtakes. The ones that never made the feed, because they weren't content. They were just us. On the lid, in her careful handwriting, for an audience of one, and honestly, that's the only kind of love that was ever actually real.